Hey, what's going on Facebook, Cincinnati, and the Tri-State, and those who are watching the show today? My name is Aaron Pullins. My friends call me AP. And many of you know that I've worked with the city of Cincinnati for over 20 years, coordinator for District 3. We're in a time of a pandemic and a protest. The two double P's, pandemic and protest. And both of them are affecting our community, our city, our country, the whole world. The top issue right now, on top of the pandemic, is the fact that we have to talk about real issues and face the real issues of racism and social engineering and marginalized people. And these are some serious focus points here. If you have wealth, if you have power, if you have privilege, then you have rights and protected by the law. This is what we're seeing in America. If you don't have wealth, if you don't have power, if you don't have privilege, if you don't have rights, you are not protected by the law. Plain and simple. And so today we want to talk about these issues as we continue to support protesting, positive protesting, so we can really get to the message that we want to see justice for George Floyd and many other who have become victims of a system that is unjust to black people and people of color, and of course poor people. So let's talk about the real issues. I won't be before you long. First of all, to make any change in society, we have to address the real issues. And some of the primary problems of black communities, some stem as far as slavery. But that's not the total problem. But we have to address these issues because we can see what's wrong, but we really have to find out what happened and what can we do about it. We need to understand civil rights. We need to understand what it is regarding social integration. We need to address slavery. We need to address social engineering. And we need to understand that we have a system that have put black people in the lowest level in a real life monopoly game. We have to understand some of these basic tough questions that is very difficult for people to address. As a founder and owner of the Men Involved Diversion, Leadership, and Mentoring Program, I deal with a lot of young youth and adults that's coming through our criminal judicial system, and I have to make an assessment because I recognize what's wrong. I have to figure out what happened and what can we do about it. And it helps us get to the main issue of what we see in our society. It has to be addressed from the top and the bottom. Whether we see negative behavior in inner city communities, or negative behavior in suburban, or negative behavior in our police department, negative behavior in our Congress or Senate, in our presidency. We have to address these real issues. And some of the history, around the 1860s, coming out of slavery, haven't changed since 150 years. So first of all, we have to know our country was constructed and built on different type of amendments that did not qualify the black people. We can keep marching. We really need to make sure that we can change legislation and change laws, and those constitutional laws that do not apply to all people. Those are really tough issues because people are playing games with people's lives. People who create concentrated poverty, people who create conditions, mental illness, unaddressed issues of trauma, poverty, lack of resources, and of course, laws that do not protect poor people. In fact, if you're rich, you can actually be guilty, but you can afford a lawyer, and by the law, you can be found innocent. And so let's just deal with a little history, because as we see the conditions of African Americans and people of color, first of all, the concept and how we're perceived is through negative information. First of all, we were considered 3/5 of a human being. And if we're not considered as a full-fledged human being, that means that the Constitution does not have to protect us. And so there are things and theories and philosophies of black people being something of negativity in the community, as we've seen throughout our history, of what has happened to black people. And now it's time for us to understand that from the very beginning, when we were brought here in the United States, we were not considered a people, we were considered property. And if you're considered property in the eyes of society, to have no laws that protect you. And so let's talk about these real issues, because these are some of the things that I see working as the court advocate, working with at-risk youth, and even working with those who are returning citizens who are trying to be acclimated back in the community and have so many barriers that impedes their ability to become productive citizens, who really want to take care of their families, who really want to be a taxpayer, who really want to be a productive citizen in society. Now, one thing we have to address is that we get in a terrible uproar when a white officer unjustly kills an unarmed black person, which I become outraged as well. And I feel anger and anxiety. But at the same time, we also have to have consistency of how we respond when we're having black on black crime. Because it seems like we have accepted that as the norm, where we just say, little Johnny got shot last night, little Bobo and little Pookie and them got shot last night. And it becomes a normal part of our dialogue, and we go on back to business. And I have not seen no consistency, locally, worldwide, on how we're going to react to the fact that blacks are still killing blacks. And I believe Black Lives Matter. I believe all lives matter. But statistics show that blacks are being impacted more than anybody else. And so we have to understand how to build a safe community. So now we have several new minorities now, in a broad scope. Now poor white people have become a minority. Hispanics, gays, lesbians, and white women. Now everybody's now fighting for that little 13%, which will never be enough for anyone else to gain wealth except the dominant one in society that has divided us all. And so at the end of the day, when we finish marching, when we finish reacting rightfully so to this injustice in society that's been happening for 400 years, we need to have a plan on how are we going to execute it this. And I think right now we need to have people and programs like mine who are willing to deal with our youth and with the people in our community. Because as we're in a pandemic, as they're slowly opening America up, communities up, the courtroom also is going to open back up. The jails are going to open back up. And people right now who have pending cases are going to be dealing with the reality of going back into an unjust justice system. So remember, we have returning citizens coming in every day. So we got to have the right programs and people in places. We're going to have city council. We're going to have Congress. We're going to have our state's representatives. We're going to have people in businesses and our community to come together towards a common goal and start looking at real programs. You know, people who really have the vast interest of our youth, of building equal and safe and flourishing communities. And we have to know the difference between our neighborhoods, which have just become hoods. And a lot of times, when we're dealing with socioeconomics, when people come in with gentrification and develop a community, I am for community and progress and development. But at the same time, I think equally we need to make sure that the other people in our community also have an equal opportunity to still grow and flourish in business and opportunity. Because a lot of times when they drive highways straight through poor neighborhoods and everyone moves up into the suburban neighborhoods, they take all the resources with them. And so we just have the hood, which is the place to live, eat, and sleep. But what we need to know now is, how do we build a community? And a community is a team. The word race is like a race. And everybody's racing to be first place, second place, and those who get first place are leaving everybody else out. And it becomes a game. And so we need to know, what do we do to build a strong community? One thing that we haven't been doing is that we must do is we have to build a team with people who have the same interests, the same plans, and who are going in the same direction. We got to be able to produce jobs. We got to be able to have goods. We got to be able to have a product And we most definitely need everybody in the community love, support each other. We also need to have relationships with officials and law enforcement who share our values. We need to be able to work cohesively. We need to develop groups that can help build the economic strength by making money and bouncing our money within the circle of our community. These are some of the things that build a safe community. The code of conduct, being able to develop jobs for those who live in the community, supply and demand, and be prepared to understand that this system is designed to divide and conquer. And in reality, there's only 3 positions when it comes to employment. Either you have a top business in business, or either you're a person who needs food stamps or social service, or you're going to turn to a life of crime for survival. We have to know that the truth, when it comes to law, it's called civil, and they go through court. Black crime is called blue collar, which they go to jail. We have to talk about these real issues, and they had no rights because they were considered property and 3/5 of a human being. And so now we look at 2020, where it looks just like 1968, with some of the same social issues, policies, and practices that kill, destroy. I'm here with solutions. I'm open for solutions and ideas. I'm looking for resources. I'm trying to build relationships on how we can deal with what's going on in our society and what's going to happen within the next 5 years. Are we going to be able to change legislation, change laws? That's what's very important. We can march all day. If we don't get to where we can change laws and make people enforce the Constitution, that we are all equal and we all should have a level of wealth so we can all be productive and live a life above poverty. So we're going to deal with those real issues. If you have wealth, if you have power, if you have rights and protection by the law, that gives you privilege. If you don't have wealth, if you don't have power, if you don't have privilege, if you don't have rights, then the law does not protect you. So we're going to continue to have this conversation. I'm looking for people that want to help me with my nonprofit organization, men involved. I need funding. I need help. I'm willing to roll my sleeves up and get this work done. I'm willing to work with other organizations. I'm willing to work with city council. I'm willing to work with the mayor. I'm willing to work with our senates. I am one of many that are good programs that need to be properly funded so we can develop action plans long enough to get people and assess people to get them services to move them in a positive direction in our society. If you don't help in this direction, we're going to perpetually see the same thing, because our behavior is what gets us in trouble and what justifies an opinion about what someone has said about us. Then we look at our behavior, it makes it seem justifiable to be treated the way we're treated. And this is all based on us becoming a product of the environment that has been set for us. So continue to support me. If you have any ideas or questions, email me at aaronpullins3@gmail.com. We're going to knock on these doors of justice that we may be able to be treated fair as productive human beings who have contributed and helped build this country. And we don't want to continue to build houses that we can't live in. So, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.